Biden has decided against restricting imports of neodymium magnets that come mostly from China. These magnets are often used in electric cars and wind turbines. According to the White House, the decision is based on the results of a 270-day Commerce Department investigation, which found that U.S. reliance on imports of these magnets are a threat to U.S. national security. So how do people view Biden's decisions when it comes to national security? Rasmussen Reports asked 1,000 people this question. How do you rate the way President Biden is handling national security issues? 19% said excellent, 20% said good, 14% said fair, 44% said poor, and then 3% said they were not sure. Rasmussen Reports head pollster Mark Mitchell is here to break down all of this for us. Mark, I mean, 20% saying excellent's pretty low.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not good.
But believe it or not, this is actually kind of a win for Biden, which is expected. I mean, part of their selling proposition was that he was going to be more mature on the world stage. But 19 plus 20% excellent and good is 39%. And that's, believe it or not, better than how voters rate him on almost every other issue. Crime, 30%. Ukraine, 31%. Immigration, 29%. Economy, 27%, with 57% saying poor. So here only 44% say poor. So it's one of his best issues, even though it's not good. Now, how has it changed? Last time we asked was in April. And back then, 37% gave him an excellent and good. So he's up a couple of points since April. The problem is with national security as a benchmark is that so much goes into it. So why did it change? He increased a little bit, but that could be noise. And that's against the backdrop of the fact that his approval rating's gone up quite a bit since then. Now, looking into the demographics, there's a couple interesting numbers that stand out. First is independents. What do they think about him on that issue? And only 30% of independents rate him excellent or good. That's not good for him. And 64% say fair or poor. And also, I thought it would be interesting to look at Hispanic voters. 34% of them say excellent or good. So that number is really low too. Now, here's the final one. I think is a takeaway for them. 35%, only 35% of Democrats say Biden's doing excellent on national security. That's a really low number.
Wow. It's really not good. It's not a good number, especially as you look heading into midterms and what that should mean, which brings us to another question you asked voters. How excited are you about voting in the midterm elections? 53% said they are very excited. 26% said they're somewhat excited. 14% said they're not very excited. And 4% said they're not at all excited. Then 3% said not sure. So, I mean, I think this is, people are excited to get out and vote, by and large.
Yeah, we haven't been asking this one too many, past years, but we have had other kinds of temperature checks going into elections. The reason we did this one specifically was to compare the Republican and the Democrat Party to see whose base is more excited. And I would say that you would combine this with the generic ballot to give you an idea of what November is going to look like. As you know, in the generic ballot, Republicans had a 13-point lead about this time last year. It's all the way down to 1 point as of our most recent generic ballot. So they've blown a 13-point lead. Now, some of that might also be noise. They've really been sitting at 4 or 5 points up. But we're one of the few pollsters that really had Republicans with a solid lead. And, I mean, it's gone as of our last reading. But with this question, Republicans still have an 8-point lead in voter enthusiasm. And I measure that by people who are saying they're very excited about voting in this election. For Republicans, it was 64% of them. For Democrats, it's 56%. But they're also blowing the lead there as well. So we asked this question in May, and 62% of Republicans said excited. So it's gone up a little bit. But in May, 46% of Democrats were very excited, and now it's up to 56%. So Democrats have had a huge surge.
You know what should have been a follow-up question to that one, Mark? It just hit me because people keep asking me this. It should have probably been, did Lindsey Graham, coming out with his 15-week ban, it seems like that might be what happened with that vote, the Republican favorability in the last few weeks. People really did not like that he did that.
I think there's so many things happening, and there's so many, Overton and windows shifting and shiny objects for people to chase. But if you look in the numbers, it's really what I think it's probably pro-choice independents waking up and picking a side because of that issue, and Democrats really circling the wagon. There are some Democrats that are against Biden, and maybe now they're not. But another interesting number about this one is that I looked back to see if we asked it in 2018. We didn't, but we asked something pretty similar, a set of questions asking voters, is anything going to stop you from getting into the polls? And both parties were pretty much equal back in 2018, and we know how 2018 turned out. So if this Republican lead holds up, I think it's something interesting to see about, voter turnout.
Yeah, then the Republicans might get their majority. I do want to, real quick, we have about another minute, get to another poll because I thought it was interesting. It's on the drug crisis. You ask people if the problem of drug abuse in America is getting better or worse. Is the problem staying the same? Only 9% said it was getting better, so that's pretty meager. 59% said it's getting worse, 25% staying the same, 7% not sure. What's some context on this one?
Well, it's good to be back on talking about this because you had me on for opioids, and we have never actually asked this question before. And comparing it to the opioid crisis, when we asked then, 10% said getting better and 44% said worse. So these numbers are, instead of 4 times more likely, people are over 6 times more likely to say that drug abuse is getting worse in America. And I think it shows when we talked, people are confused about opioids, and there's a different root cause to the issue. It's drug companies, it's doctors. Drug abuse, could be a lot more things, drugs pouring over the border. And so as we expected and talked about on air, the numbers are worse. Now, how does this, historically, you would ask this kind of question to gauge change over time. And once again, we don't have this one going back, but I dug one out from 2015. And the question was, is the U.S. winning the war on drugs? And back then, only 10% said yes, very close to the 9% who say drug abuse is getting better. But 77% back then said no. And here, only 59% say the problem's getting worse. So these numbers say, and across all demographics, people pretty much agree that the drug problem's getting really, really bad and is worse. But it's not as bad potentially as it was many years ago if you look at those numbers. So little silver lining to the cloud.
Well, that's really interesting. Yeah, I wouldn't have expected that. That's very interesting. Thank you so much, Mark Mitchell. Always good to talk to you about this.